Hello, team. Welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan Emmett Pitts. This is a US election special, given that Tim Walz has been nominated as the presumptive vice presidential candidate for, or nominee for, the presidential elections in November for the Democrats, and there has been a massive rally in Philadelphia that's worth reporting on. But there's also an awful lot of other information to impart. And we're going to start with Donald Trump and some serious rants, very childish name-calling rants that he has been giving out on Truth Social. This one, according to Spiro's Ghost, who's some random source, saying, when I just saw this utterly deranged, completely delusional rant posted by someone on here, I thought for a brief moment it must be fake because even Trump is not this unhinged and insane. I was wrong. It's quite real. So Trump says, what are the chances that crooked Joe Biden, the cap's worst president in the history of the US, whose presidency was unconstitutionally, quote, caps stolen from him by Kamabla? I don't know. There's just some name he now has for Kamala Harris. Barack Caps Hussein Obama. That's trying to make the old classic ploy that happened back in previous elections, trying to make Barack Obama sound like an Arab terrorist, Islamic terrorist, crazy Nancy Pelosi, shifty Adam Schiff, crying Chuck Schumer, and others on the lunatic left. I mean, this is just so childish, just calling people names, just like an absolute infant. Anyway, Caps crashes the Democrat National Convention and tries to take back the nomination, beginning with challenging me to another Caps debate. He feels that he made a historically tragic mistake by handing over the US presidency, a Caps coup, to the people in the world he most hates and wants it back. Caps now! Exclamation mark! Exclamation mark! Exclamation mark! And this kind of approach is, I think, trying to convince. I don't know who he's trying to convince. I don't know what outcome there will be to these kind of rants other than people kind of mocking Trump for whinging. All he ever seems to do is whinge, but he's trying to get Joe Biden back in a race, and it's just never going to happen. The polls are just too good at the moment for Harris. So my mate's just sent me an image of the betting odds. He's saying, I follow the betting odds. You know, I'm not as over the American elections as you are, but as a fellow Brit, you know, I follow betting odds, and Harris is now up for the first time, and that is really, really important because this is all about where people put their money. It's not about what people want to be the case. It's about what people are predicting based on, you know, rational evidence, because they're going to spend money on betting here. Anyway, you've got Trump desperate for Joe Biden to be running instead of Harris. Looking at the polls and looking at all of this data, he's really going to want Biden back. So this is another truth from Donald Trump saying this is the most radical left duo, so that's Harris and Walz, in American history. There has never been anything like it, and there never will be again. Crazy Kamabla is, you know, that's the name again, is indeed Caps crazy. And this is all caps. I hear there is a big movement to bring back crooked Joe. Of course, there is no such movement. Republicans against Trump say, translation, I'm still very upset that President Biden isn't the Democratic nominee, and that he is. Anyway, talking about Tim Walz, we've talked previously in my last video on the subject about how Tim Walz, I wasn't expecting him to be the nominee, and actually I've come around to him a lot, but there are still some who are thinking he probably isn't the best choice, and we'll have a look at the way that the Republicans are going to be building up a narrative for him. But he has gone down really well at rallies and among many Democrats. The question is, like I said to you before, it's always about, okay, what about the center ground? What about the independents? What about this demographic, that demographic? These people that the Democrats definitely need to be voting. How is he going to sit with them? But there are two things. There are two things the Democrats need to do to win the election. One, they need to steal the swing voters away from the Republicans. So they need to pull maybe the never Trump Republicans, the swing voters, the independents, and so on and so forth. So they need to take them. The other thing they need to do is mobilize their voters that they already have. Those Democrats who were getting quite apathetic and were disenchanted with Joe Biden running again, they need every single Democrat to get out and vote. And what Tim Walz is doing is feeding that enthusiasm, is supplying that enthusiasm. And That is good. The question is, okay, so that bit's looking like it's going to be successfully sewn up by this pair. You've got Kamala Harris as a woman and a person of color. So she's going to tick the boxes for those demographics. You've got Tim Walz as a white man, but he likes hunting, so he's pro gun, but he's also pro sensible gun control. But there's that little bit. So he's a veteran. There are lots of elements that might appeal to the right a bit more. But the question is he going to attract that center ground? This is Sarah Longwell and Tim Miller. These are both former Republicans who are now kind of never Trumpers, trying to understand particularly the center ground, and they are working to get votes for the Democrats because they think the present iteration of the Republican Party is too problematic, and they're certainly not fans of Trump. So Sarah Longwell, her job is to look at focus groups that skew center right. So that's her thing, and she's been listening to them a lot. And the kind of candidate that would appeal to them are would be ideally Josh Shapiro, and Josh Shapiro hasn't been selected, and so she's thinking that Kamala Harris has missed a trick here.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm a little different in that I'm sure that Josh Shapiro was a stronger pick, and the reason is this, and I think this is where my frustration with the Walz pick comes in, is that whether it's Shapiro, somebody had a comment that was like, "Wait, Sarah, you told us the other day you'd be cool with anybody." And I do say the Walz ascendancy was like a late breaking addition. I was really in the Kelly, Bashir, Shapiro, Whitmer, Pete vibes. And I'll tell you, because every single one of them has at some time had to win Republican votes. And I just think for this election, it was important.
Which is what she is kind of talking about now. You need someone in there who can win Republican votes. These people have done that, apart from maybe Pete Buttigieg, but those people have done that before. Has Tim Walz done that?
Well, Walz has too.
See, this is where I think people oversell this particular thing. One time in the early days, right, in 2006 when he won his first Senate seat?
First House seat. That congressional seat then came back around the Trump year in 2016. It was a swing seat again. Which is when
he left to run for...
Right. No, then the next year. He ran in 2018. Right. So when he first ran, it was a tough race, and then it was kind of a safe seat for a little while. But then when the last time he ran, and then he left to run for governor. But the last time he ran in 2016, that Trump won the district, and he won his seat. I'm just, as a factual matter, I hear where you're going with this, but I just want to
let me just say, so 2006, like a wave year for Dems.
Yeah.
And so... I wanted somebody who has won swing voters in a swing state. Like, that's really like what I was looking for. And everybody else on the thing, except I guess kind of Pete, although not Pete, really. Less so. I think the rest of them.
You give him a gay pass.
I give him a family pass. He's got a family pass. I felt like they had worked the muscle of winning over center-right voters in a way that when you go look at old clips, or not even that old clips of Walz, where he's like, "Oh, Nancy Pelosi told me to dial it back. And on my support for abortion," that's not a guy who's had to compete super hard for center-right votes. And with Kamala Harris's signature liability being that she codes as San Francisco progressive, I thought it was going to be most helpful for her to have somebody who ran on the idea that they could pick up the center, right? And obviously the other thing about that is that's just the voters I deal with, right? I am so there's a lot of people who are like, Sarah doesn't know what she's talking about. And I will admit that there's lots of things I don't know what I'm talking about on. I do think as a matter of just the thing I do day in and day out, it is listen to center right, soft GOP voters and think about how to persuade them to vote for Democrats. Right? That's what I do against these anti-democratic Republicans. And so I do not think Walz is the strongest pick on that. And I also... Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, you go.
Well, I'm just going to say my last...
I was going to say, you finish your point.
Walz is a little bit, to me, I think I said this morning, he is what Democrats think of as somebody who codes center right.
So she goes on to talk about how Democrats think that he will appeal to the center right because he's good with a gun, veteran, and all these ideas. But actually, that is a perception from the left rather than the reality. And will he actually code for appealing to those people? And she's less sure that he is the right choice for that. Republicans on Fox News, here's Stephen Miller, who is Dracula incarnated in modern form. Stephen Miller here is a little bit more obvious in his criticisms of Tim Walz.
This man is a moron, he is an incompetent, he is a radical, and he is going to turn the entire Midwest into a third world state. This is a disaster for America. We have to beat this guy, and we have to beat Harris in November.
The idea that he's going to turn the entire Midwest into a third world state, when actually Minnesota is doing very well, thank you, and it's the third happiest state in the US, is Stephen Miller is a complete swear word. One of the most dislikable human beings in the GOP. But anyway, does Walz really represent this progressive left that the Republicans are going to be trying to sell? So they're going to be saying that Kamala Harris, and you've heard that Trump's already said that, the most like liberal left lunatic that we've ever, liberal left that we've ever seen in American politics ever. Walz and Harris. Well, are they really that progressive? Where does Walz sit? Well, actually, according to this ideology score, he sits pretty much in the center. And he's not that liberal left, or, quote, Tim Walz is a far left socialist. Yeah, no. Is he? Well, not really, no. But of course, perception is reality. Republicans will be trying to sell that, and they'll be looking at several things. One of them is trying to tie him to being pro-China and sort of involved with China an awful lot. Drew Pavlou points out, though, that Tim Walz has a decades-long history working with the anti-CCP dissidents in China, Hong Kong, Tibet, and East Turkestan. He chose to get married on the 5th anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre, so he could always remember that day. And I'm happy that the guy opposes the CCP. So there you go. The truth is important, but it's all about battling with the GOP narrative. They're not interested in truth, of course. Now, one of the things that they might have some traction with is what J.D. Vance says here.
When the United States Marine Corps, when the United States of America asked me to go to Iraq to serve my country, I did it. I did what they asked me to do it, and I did it honorably, and I'm very proud of that service. When Tim Walz was asked by his country to go to Iraq, you know what he did? He dropped out of the Army and allowed his unit to go without him, a fact that he's been criticized for aggressively by a lot of the people that he served with. I think it's shameful. When the United States Marine...
So he's calling Tim Walz shameful for serving for 24 years, then retiring, and then coming out just before going to Iraq instead of going to Iraq. So Adam Kinzinger, a veteran himself and former Republican lawmaker, says, okay, JD served honorably, so JD Vance, who's himself a veteran, but he wasn't kicking down doors. He was in public affairs, which again is fine and honorable. Tim, after he was eligible for retirement, retired. People do that. So Tim Walz just took his retirement after 24 years of service. It was a real problem. If it was a real problem, he would have been stop-lossed and prevented from retiring. In other words, if he was really wanted by the National Guard to remain in position, they would have stopped him from retiring at that point. As US Citizens for Ukraine, just replying to that post, says, people do not understand how it works. The military could have made him stay. He put in his retirement packet, it was approved, and he retired. That's how it works. My God, folks, he served 24 hours honorably and retired, and MAGA and Trump supporters are bitching when their candidate literally got multiple deferments from the draft, required military service during the Vietnam War. So sad. So that is, of course, the bone spurs of Donald Trump that stopped him from being drafted. Adam Kinzinger goes on to say, this is the insane thing. Every month, thousands of people retire. The fact that Walz did 25 years, a 5 over retirement eligibility, and 4 years after 9/11 is honourable. Many people at 25 years today would get out even if there was a deployment possibility because they did their duty. He served his time. Yeah, so you're going to see that a lot, though. That will be one of the main bones of contention one of the main bone spurs of contention for Tim Walz, and we'll see whether it gets any traction, particularly among those people in the centre and those demographics we talked about previously. Adam Kinzinger does go on to say, he's replying to someone saying, what happens to these guys that they turn into attack dogs for the left? I get breaking with your party on an issue or a candidate, but why do these guys, which is Adam Kinzinger, seem to turn into full-blown libtards? And Adam Kinzinger, who is a You Never Trump a Republican, says, my party is gone. It's been replaced by a cult, so it needs to be defeated and then someday rebuilt into a sane party with adults who want to inspire and not divide, who want to paint a vision of the future, not litigate grievances, who want to help the helpless, not stomp on them and laugh. You know, a good party. Right. So talking about JD Vance and comparing him to Tim Walz, the idea for me is, who would you rather go down a pub with and have a pint? Which is always, I think, a good judge of character. And I'd much rather go down the pub with Tim Walz than JD Vance. So reporter asks to JD Vance.
Old saying in politics that what can swing undecided voters in a place like Wisconsin is whether you seem like somebody they would like to have a beer with.
Yeah.
Why would people in Wisconsin want to have a beer with you?
Well, I guess they'd want to have a beer with me because I actually do like to drink beer. And
Old saying in politics.
Brilliant. Well done. He's really won over the audience with that one. He's just so, as someone said recently, who was it? It was Josh Shapiro actually said he's so inorganic. He's just so inorganic, so forced. Now, ABC News has obtained an audio of Donald Trump praising Tim Walz.
I know Governor Walz is on the phone, and we spoke, and I fully agree with the way he handled it the last couple of days. I asked him to do that, and the whole world was laughing. 2 days, 3 days later, I spoke to the governor. The governor's, I think, on the call, and he's an excellent guy. You get it.
So it goes on to talk about how he handled George Floyd protests in Minnesota. But yeah, guys, he's an excellent guy, and praising him there, and obviously that's going to be utilised. So we're going to go to the rally next, but before we do so, worth noticing that Scott Ritter's just been arrested, or he's just being investigated for the Foreign Agents Act, the FARA, F-A-R-A, where he is a Foreign Agents Registration Act. He is basically a Russian shill. For those who don't watch my Russian, so sorry, just to say that phone just went. If you don't follow my Ukraine war videos, Scott Ritter is a Russian shill, and here he is being filmed with RFK Jr., who's running as an independent, but really as a Trump, a Trump sidekick. Interesting that those two are seen happily laughing together. Doesn't surprise me one iota. Right, moving on to the rally. So this rally was pretty incredible. But before we look at the rally, let's just continue actually a little bit with Tim Walz and why he's such a massive difference. That there's this, I think, a gaping chasm between him and someone like Trump and their approach to politics and what politics really is. This is Pete Buttigieg, by the way.
I'm really excited. Like you said, she had so many great directions she could go in. She also has found an extraordinary partner who has brought that joy immediately to the campaign trail, and somebody who I think sets up this ticket and this campaign even more than was already true.
So there are two elements to Walz that he's talking about here that feed into the rally. One is joy, and Walz mentions joy himself. So he's just a very positive human being that gives you a sense of happiness when you see him talk, but also this sense of service.
To be about all of us. That's the thing I'm really excited about. As you showed, he has such a compelling story, such an interesting biography, classroom teacher, many years in the military, football coach, and then a very effective member of Congress and governor. But one thing you noticed right away about him is that it's not about him. I was thinking about what those different experiences have in common. Being a teacher, being a coach, being a senior non-commissioned officer. And what they all have in common is they're all about cultivating and supporting other people. And you can tell that's what he's about. And that's what this ticket is about. I think it's one of the reasons why the Trump campaign can't figure out what to do with this ticket, even more so today than what's been true ever since she became the nominee. they cannot fathom a campaign or any leaders who are not about themselves. But this campaign, as impressive and compelling as the ticket themselves are, they've also made it clear that this campaign isn't about them. It's about you. It's about us. It's about the future of this country. And I think his personal qualities and his message really speak to that in a way that's going to continue that focus on the American people. That's how she's going to win this election.
It's such a good point, is. And if you take nothing else away from this video, take that. Trump is so incredibly narcissistic. He's self-serving, he's egotistical, he's egocentric, he's just entirely selfish. Everything is about him. Like everything he does, he's a hugely transactional person, and he does things only for personal gain, for him, not for the country. So I've talked previously about the decisions that are good for the country are seen as good for the country, secondarily to being good for him. So he'll do things that are good for him first, and that's how he evaluates everything that he does. That's Trump's transactionality, incredibly narcissistic. So the idea of service is an anathema to him. He doesn't serve the country serves him. You think about why he likes these strongmen like Kim Jong-un, Jair Bolsonaro, Viktor Orban, Vladimir Putin, Xi Jinping. He sees them as strong men. That hot mic incident with, was it Peter Doocy or on the plane where he's talking about Kim Jong-un, saying, when he speaks, they stand up to attention. I want my people to be like that. I want this country. The idea that he wants the US to just be a bunch of people who stand up to attention when Trump speaks. He wants to be that strong man where he has that power and he can see that power over other people. This is not about serving those people. He's not a servant king, if you like to use a religious term there. He's not a servant king. He is a dictator wannabe. Whereas when you look at the Harris-Walz ticket, and you look at Walz, a football coach that took a losing team to be top state winners. When you look at a teacher who's married to a 29-year public school teacher, and he was a teacher as well, a high school teacher. He was in the armed services serving his country. And then a congressman serving his constituents. Everything about Tim Walz is serving other people. He puts others before himself, and he works to better their lives, not his own life. That's an incredibly powerful ideal there. And I think, as Pete Buttigieg says, A, he points that out, which is incredibly important. This needs to be discussed more. And B, he states that that's very difficult for the Republicans to counter, because the narrative would be like trying to denigrate someone who serves others. How do you do that easily? And this kind of excitement that he's motivated, and Kamala Harris, of course, as well. So we've had a couple of weeks of her whipping up enthusiasm and getting people excited with her stump speeches that have been good, and then Tim Walz has come out and been really good as well, and they've gone and had this rally in Wisconsin. Line of cars waiting to get into the Harris-Walz rally in Wisconsin is over 2 miles long. Something is brewing, folks. Trump should be terrified. You've got here's a line in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, waiting for Vice President Kamala Harris. The line is reportedly 8 blocks long, estimated 10,000 people. The enthusiasm is real. The movement is real. There was talk from Republicans about this being totally manufactured. You don't manufacture that, right? That is an organic surge. And then look at this. So this is Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Kamala Harris is in town. This is not AI generated. This is a real crowd and was not manipulated like Trump sometimes does. Wisconsin is a crucial swing state. So you got music blaring and whatnot, and you've got just a whole sea of people there, ready and waiting. And then first half, this is well worth watching. So the first half of this clip is Harris's rally crowd, and the second half is JD Vance's rally crowd on the same day. So this is both on the same day. The music will probably trigger copyright infringements and whatnot.
Enjoying their day here in Shelby Township.
That's JD Vance.
An illegal alien plow into them and kill this innocent mother and daughter.
So there you go. that is a massive difference between those two rallies, or rally and speech, or whatever. It's just incredible there. Now, if you haven't seen the Harris-Walz speech, I mean, Harris's speech itself was absolutely brilliant, really well delivered, very well constructed, and the crowd is just super excited. And then you got Tim Walz as well, and Josh Shapiro too. Like anyway, full speech here from Kamala Harris and Tim Walz delivering a historic and electrifying speech in a packed arena in Philadelphia. First event together since Walz became Harris's running mate. Worth watching in its entirety. I'm just going to pick out a couple of bits. Just this is again talking about Walz's CV, and then how excited the crowd are, and how well this is delivered by Harris.
So I love you too. So here's the thing. Since the day that I announced my candidacy, I set out to find a partner who can help build this brighter future. A leader who will help unite our nation and move us forward. A fighter for the middle class. A patriot who believes, as I do, in the extraordinary promise of America. A promise of freedom, opportunity, and justice, not just for some, but for all. So, Pennsylvania, I'm here today because I found such a leader.
Very, very well done there.
Best.
And this next part is really good as well, but just listen to that genuine excitement and happiness and enthusiasm. It's palpable.
Those who know him best, Tim is more than a governor.
Sorry about the buffering.
To his wife, Gwen, he is a husband. To his kids, Hope and Gus, he is a dad. To his fellow veterans, he is Sergeant Major Walz. To the people of southern Minnesota, for 12 years, he was congressman. To his former high school students, he was Mr. Walz. And to his former high school football players, he was coach.
It's this bit next. So well done.
Coach. And in 91 days, the nation will know Coach Walz by another name, Vice President of the United States. So America, for some folks, they're just getting to know Coach Walz's story. And I'll tell you, he is the proud product of a middle-class family in rural Nebraska. He is a veteran who served our nation in uniform for more than 2 decades as a member of the Army National Guard, and he went to college on the GI Bill. He is someone who long before he entered politics worked as a teacher. When Coach Walz and his wife Gwen moved from his native Nebraska to Minnesota nearly 30 years ago, they both took jobs at the local high school. Coach Walz taught social studies, Gwen taught English. After school, Tim was the linebackers coach for the football team. Where I've heard the stories about he had a knack for using the game of football to teach life lessons. He saw the potential in kids who sometimes didn't even see it in themselves. Under those Friday night lights, Coach Walz motivated his players to believe they could achieve anything. And together, they defied the odds, hear this out, going from a winless record to the school's first ever state championship. Tim wasn't only a role model on the football field. Around that same time, Coach Walz was approached by a student in his social studies.
And she goes on and gives anecdotes. I thought there is a bit in this where they start just chanting USA, USA, USA. And I'm not a big fan of that kind of nationalistic jingoism type thing. But like to see that at a rally like this, a Democrat rally as well, I think, and that enthusiasm, that groundswell. I mean, you can see he's going to be called coach, isn't he? That's going to be some element of his narrative there. But I just think that like that the examples you see there in that particular rally go to reflect the enthusiasm that has been generated for this ticket. I think it's, as I said, palpable. I found a bit here actually. This is it.
And after all, you know, the promise of America is what makes it possible for two middle-class, one a daughter of Oakland, California, who was raised by a working mother, the other a son of the Nebraska plains who grew up working on a farm. It's the promise of America, because only in America is it possible for them together to make it all the way to the White House.
And that's what I'm talking about. So she off the back of talking about a really positive form of patriotism, she then engenders that kind of response. Her and Tim Walz, absolutely brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Speech writing and the way to engage a crowd. And just the last part of this rally, I want to play you because I want to give you an idea of what these guys are creating as a movement, as an excited electorate, and also as a narrative, what they're trying to provide, and this positive sense of what America can be. And I think they do a good job of this in a way that the Trump Vance ticket just doesn't, when they're using very divisive subjects to try and divide a nation. I don't think it's working nearly as well as this. And here's a great example of real positivity coming on here.
And when we fight, we win. And now, welcome the next Vice President of the United States, Tim Walz.
Did JD Vance get this reaction?
Wow. Thank you. Wow. Thank you, Philadelphia. Thank you, Madam Vice President, for the trust you put in me, but maybe more so, thank you for bringing back the joy. I'm thrilled to be on this journey with you and Doug, this incredible journey. And Pennsylvania, I know you know this, but my God, what a treasure you have in Josh Shapiro.
Of course, he knows how important Josh Shapiro is. One of the arguments for not taking, well, certainly Mark Kelly out of Arizona, is that he's needed as a senator in Arizona to keep the senators, to have some chance of winning the Senate or retaining the Senate. Josh Shapiro is a governor, but he pays him such great respect here, and it goes on a little bit, or it doesn't go on, but he continues here, gives Josh Shapiro some real props. But the mentioning of joy is something you heard from Pete Buttigieg, and that is, I think, a really important point to make there. There are just great moments of Walz's speech. Here's another one.
Now, Donald Trump sees the world a little differently than us. First of all, he doesn't know the first thing about service.
What I just talked to you about? Service. It's all about tying all these threads together and realizing the narratives that both sides are trying to build up about the other side and about themselves.
He doesn't have time for it because he's too busy serving himself. Again and again and again, Trump weakens our economy to strengthen his own hand. He mocks our laws.
Tax cuts for the rich.
He sows chaos and division. And that's to say nothing of his record as president. He froze in the face of the COVID crisis. He drove our economy into the ground. And make no mistake, violent crime was up under Donald Trump. That's not even counting the crimes he committed.
What a line. What a line. Absolutely raucous, and you can just imagine the experience of being there. Incredible stuff. But yes, so that was him at that point. We then have a JD Vance element here going on.
And I got to tell you, I can't wait to debate the guy. That is, if he's willing to get off the couch and show up. So, you see what I did there?
And that's, of course, reference to the couch interactions that are false, but the rumors or whatever it was, however it came about, the idea of JD Vance and a couch having intimate relations. So he references that in such a clever way. Brilliant. And then, like, when you talk about the positivity and the joy, again, look at this. It's just concentrating on the little things. Like, by little things here, I mean the actual genuine reactions of human beings that isn't kind of manufactured. Look at you. So here in the frame, you've got Tim Walz's wife and Kamala Harris's husband walking up to meet their counterparts on stage, and just look at the way that they meet each other. So just again, little things. These are people who are enthused, happy to be in each other's company, having just good human relations there. Just fantastic. I spoke to one excited Minnesota resident of Governor Walz's house shortly after he was announced. Outside of his house, shortly after he was announced as Kamala Harris's running mate. Her words when I asked how she felt about the pick are as follows. I think this is just brilliant.
What was your reaction when you heard that he was indeed the...
Boom! I said, boom! I said, winning, big dad energy, okay? I knew that he, if just given an opportunity to really sit down with Vice President Harris and talk to her, and she got to know him, know the man that I know, that it would leave no doubt. There would be no hesitation or reservation that she would know that he was a person that needed to be.
So, yeah, the great reaction there. And then as a result of that rally and what's been going on with Tim Walz, TikTok's been exploding. Gen Z absolutely loves Tim Walz. So when you're talking about going back to the two things he needs to do, get these people over here, the independents, but also motivate the base to make sure that the base gets out and votes. Actually, he's doing both of those things, arguably with the young people in center young people, exciting them and exciting the young Democrats to get out and vote. But just interesting that JD Vance's campaign here. Seriously, I'm confused by JD Vance's campaign stop in Pennsylvania today. Is he supporting Kamala Harris now? So this is the importance of having someone design like everything correctly, and you can't. That says Kamala chaos, but you can't read chaos. It just looks like he is supporting Kamala by having a massive sign of Kamala behind him. Absolutely hilarious. And then Laura Ingraham here, Laura Ingram's show. I'm not gonna play what she says here, but Laura Ingraham, if you know Minnesota well, and I know it well, especially Milwaukee, it's changed. But it's the chyron at the bottom, all fluff, no substance from Harris and Walz, which is projection. I've talked about this for a long time to you guys, which is Trump particularly, but the GOP campaign in general, but I think of late, and when I say of late, in the last sort of 8 years or so, has been lacking in substance. Like, they don't know what to campaign on, so they campaign on culture wars. There is no substance, there's no policy to what is talked about at the... You think of Trump rallies, yeah, he'll talk about sharks and electrification, or, you know, would you like to be electrocuted or eaten by a shark? He'll talk about Hannibal Lecter, and then he'll go off on one about immigrants and certain things, like, but big ideas rather than like individual policy details. It's just, and I've said it's vacuous and there's no substance. There's never any substance. And look at what Fox News is trying to say here, that the Walz and Harris campaign and the rally was all fluff and no substance. When actually, when you listen to it, there's lots of substance in there. They talk about the things they are going to be campaigning on, and it is, I think, markedly more substantial than the Republican alternative. And then we're finally going to finish on some polls here. So Senate polls in swing states: Arizona has Gallego up 6, Casey up 5 in Pennsylvania, Nevada, Rosen up 3, Heinrich up 11 in New Mexico. So down ticket. There was this situation where down ticket, the Democrats were outperforming Biden, and this was one of the big alarm bells for Biden. We need to get Biden out because he's not only going to be bringing down some of these down ticket politicians, but actually also we're seeing that they're doing much better than him, which shows us that Biden is not popular enough to run and to win the presidential election. We've got on the economy, though, a new policy poll from Marist, which is an A-rated poll from the 4th of August. Trump up 3, 51 to 48 on Harris on the economy, and on immigration up 6 on Harris, 52 to 46. So those are the things, even though the economy has been far better under Biden than under Trump. Biden's economy has been absolutely fantastic. The stats are in, but it's the perception is important there. A general election poll, we have Harris up 3, 51 to 48, according to Marist again. So that's their main poll. And last time their poll had Trump up 1. So that's a really big 4-point shift there in favor of Harris. In the Senate poll in Arizona, Gallego is up 11 in this particular poll, although it's a D-rated poll, high ground, against, I presume that's Kerry Lake. So that I think he should have a shoe in there. General election poll from MU Law here, which is an A-rated poll, A+ poll, has Harris up 6, 53 to 47. That's huge. That's absolutely huge. New Cook Political, it's back to a toss-up. So 3 electoral college rating changes. Arizona has gone from lean Republican to a toss-up. Nevada has gone lean Republican to toss-up. Georgia has gone lean Republican to toss-up. So that is hugely important. All of these polls are really shifting. And wow, says Phillips O'Brien to a new poll from Marquette, who's an A+ rated pollster. Harris up 8 when you include Kennedy. So highest ever, 50% against Trump's 42% and Kennedy at 6%. That is unbelievable. It's incredible. So the polls are really swinging in Harris's favor. Trump knows that. He's going nuts, but he's not getting out on the campaign trail. People have been saying, where are you? What are you doing? Well, stop playing golf. Is he showing his age? Why is he not getting out and campaigning? He's leaving JD Vance to go around the swing states. Is that really wise? JD Vance is a shite campaigner. He's crap in rallies. I mean, you just heard him several times. And you saw like a handful of people that he was speaking to. What are you doing? Like, you're throwing it away. Anyway, there you go. That's far too much from me. Hopefully that was of interest and use to you. Thank you very much for watching. Take care, guys, and I'll speak to you soon.